Hello friends, I'm Rita Boyer, Certified Educator at Prospect Presbyterian Church in Maplewood, New Jersey. And welcome to another one of our Holy Week stories. This one is meant for Thursday, which is often called Maundy Thursday or Holy Thursday, but you can listen to it any day of the week. I'm going to tell it to you as it is told in Growing in God's Love, a Story Bible. Editors are Elizabeth Caldwell and Carol Wareheim. You can find it in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, the first 20 verses. I'd like to show you a picture of this story. You can see Jesus and his friends seated around a table. And Jesus is holding something here. Can you see it? Maybe you'll find out in the story what he's holding and why. When people celebrate holidays, they often eat special meals together. What kind of food do you like to eat at Christmas? At Easter? On your birthday? Jesus and the disciples ate a meal to celebrate the Passover when they were in Jerusalem. When Jesus and the disciples went into Jerusalem on the day we call Palm Sunday, it was time for the Passover festival. Jewish people traveled from all over to Jerusalem. They came to remember how God sent Moses to lead them out of slavery into the Promised Land. An important part of this celebration was the Passover meal. Jesus sent his friends Peter and John into the city. He said, "Find a place where we can eat the Passover meal together." "Where do you want us to prepare the meal? We don't live here," they asked. "You will meet a man carrying a jar of water," answered Jesus. "He will show you an upstairs guest room in his house." Peter and John went to Jerusalem. They saw the man with the water jar. He showed them his upstairs guest room where the meal could be prepared, just like Jesus had said. Later, Jesus and all the disciples came to the upstairs room. When the meal was ready, they gathered around the table to eat the Passover meal of lamb, vegetables, and herbs. Jesus looked around the table. He said, "I am glad to eat this Passover meal with you. It might be a long time until we eat together again." Jesus picked up a cup. He said, "Thank you, God, for this food." Then Jesus picked up a loaf of bread, tore it into pieces. He gave the bread to his disciples. "This bread is like my body," he said. "Remember me when you eat bread with your friends and family." When everyone had eaten, Jesus lifted up the cup again. He said, "This cup is like the blood that makes each human alive. Remember me when you drink from this cup." This was a new way to celebrate Passover. The disciples were confused about some of the things that Jesus said, but tonight they were happy to be together. What do you think Jesus meant whenever he said, "Remember me"? After all, he was sitting right there in front of them. What did he mean when he said, "Remember me when you eat bread and drink from the cup"? Our Jewish friends share Passover meal to celebrate and remember how God set them free from slavery. It's a remembering meal. Even the food that they eat reminds them of what happened when Moses led the people out of slavery from Egypt. Have you ever had foods that reminded you of people or things? Foods that are kind of remembering foods for you? Maybe it's a certain kind of cookie that your grandmother makes. And whenever you eat that cookie, you remember Grandma. Or maybe there's a certain food that you only eat at Christmas time. And whenever you see that food, you think of Christmas. We think of Easter when we see colored eggs. We think of Easter when we see some chocolate candy in the shapes of bunnies or eggs. What other foods remind you of certain places or things or people? Just as Passover is a remembering meal, communion is a remembering meal for Christians as we remember Jesus when we eat the bread and drink from the cup. What else can you do to remember Jesus? That's something to think about this Holy Week and this day and night in particular. What can you do to remember Jesus? We're not meeting in church like we normally do. We are not sharing communion together in our church sanctuary. But there are other ways to remember Jesus. How might you remember Jesus on this Holy Thursday, on this Holy Week? One of the things that we do together when we do gather in the church on Maundy Thursday is to have a tenebrae service. It's a service of darkness. So if you've been to that service, you know that we hear the last words that Jesus spoke from the cross, and candles that are lit in the front of the sanctuary are extinguished. One by one, the lights go out, and the lights overhead dim and finally go out. And anything that represents life or color in our sanctuary is taken out. Candles, cross, flowers, cloth, all taken out to remind us of what life must have been like when Jesus was gone from their midst. Maybe there's a spot in your home that you can take away decorations. Maybe you have a place where you have some Easter decorations. Maybe you'll want to put them somewhere else and leave a space bare in the way that we make our sanctuary bare until Easter morning. And then when the good news comes that Jesus is risen, you can bring those things back to that table or that spot in your home. And then it will speak more of life and beauty. Another thing to help you remember is this word search that I have on the website, and there's a link to it in the email, and a craft that you might want to do as well. I hope that you enjoy those and celebrate a blessed Maundy Thursday with your family. I will be back tomorrow with another story, so I hope that you will be as well. Thank you for joining me today. Bye-bye.